Okay, good evening, and thank you for joining us for this general election forum for Port Commissioner. This forum is presented to you by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and TCTV. For those of you that don't know, the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and the League of Women Voters in general is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to voter education, and we encourage informed and active voters. The League also registers new voters, and we participate in studies, so we would love to have you join us. The League of Women Voters is open to both men and women, so please, if you haven't joined the League of Women Voters of Thurston County, we would love to have you regardless of your gender. The candidates tonight are Davis and Sue Gunn, and we appreciate them joining us today. Thank you both very much. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then we'll start the questions. One candidate will get 2 minutes, the other candidate responds, and we'll go back and forth. Then we'll take questions from you. And then finally, the candidates will have each 1 minute closing statements. So with that, we'll start with the 2 minute opening statements. And Jeff, we'll start with you, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Allyson. Good evening. I am Jeff Davis, and I'm your current Port Commissioner here at the Port of Olympia. And I ran for this position 4 years ago under 3 different tenets. First one is to make the port more transparent. As some of you may recall, the port had been found under violation a couple different times, and as a result of that, there were some lawsuits that came against the Port of Olympia, just simply because information was not readily available. I'm proud to say over the last my term, we haven't had a single suit filed against us. And I think that goes with the testament of the ideology that I brought to this commission to make sure that we are more transparent, to have more information brought out to the general public, and when information is requested from us, that we get it out in a timely manner. The second item that I ran on is profitability. As some of you may know, the port has been more profitable in the last 4 years than we have in quite some time. And in fact, this year, we will be more profitable than we've ever been in the port's 91-year history. And I'm quite proud of that accomplishment. A lot has to do with the success of the marine terminal. We've had quite a few inroads as far as the increased shipping that's happened at the marine terminal over the last 4 years. Give you an idea, in 2008, we had 3 ships call in the Port of Olympia, and this year we're expecting 36, 35, somewhere in there. The last thing that I ran for is to bring the Port of Olympia more to Thurston County itself. People think of the Port of Olympia simply as ships and boats coming into the downtown Olympia area. I'm always kind of struggling to find out what we can do to have impact throughout the county. We started a small cities program here that is, I think, a success to the small cities throughout the county, Yelm, Rainier, Bicota, and Tenino, to where money is brought to those communities through the port and specifically through revenue generated from the marine terminal, so that the same success that can happen at the City of Olympia here can also happen throughout the county. It's my goal and my endeavor over the next 4 years to continue that mission, not just to make sure that we're successful in what we have as far as the marina, the airport, and the industrial property we have, but to find new ways we can bring jobs and economy throughout Thurston County itself. Thank you, and I look forward to your vote.
Thank you, Jeff. Sue, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Hi. I'm Sue Gunn, and I look forward to bringing my vast array of professional experience to the position of Port Commissioner. And that includes critical scientific thinking and problem solving for my doctorate in geology. It also involves competence in fiscal analysis from over a decade of budget and appropriations work at the federal level. Leadership skills honed through years of coalition and consensus building within the environmental community, and a background in economic development and job creation. My goal is to bring the port into the 21st century, and by that I mean getting it to operate in the black, wean it off of taxpayer subsidies for basic operations, utilize its economic development mission to serve the entire community and not just a few big businesses, improve its environmental record, establish genuine public involvement, and last but not least, protect the farmer's market. The port likes to say it operates like a business, but if it were a business, it would be out of business. Last year, it lost $1.4 million, but it compensated for that by bringing in nearly $5 million in taxes. As a fiscally conservative person, I will work to reduce the taxpayers' burden that's created by the port. Remember, the port's mission is economic development, and that's not just about moving cargo. It's about helping local businesses grow and developing a vibrant economy. So if elected, I will work to create jobs not just behind the port's fence, but across the entire county. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you both for those opening statements. First question goes to Jeff, 2 minutes. What are your budget priorities for the port?
Well, I started off on the opening statement to make sure that we can make the port more profitable. And if you look at the budget statements, we certainly have done that over the last 4 years. The activities that are happening out at the airport, in the industrial area, and the marina have all pretty much stayed the same as far as the amount of revenue that is being brought in. And in fact, over the last couple of years, they've been decreasing just because of the recessionary times that we're in. The biggest boon for the Port of Olympia over the last 3 years is simply put the marine terminal. The increase of shipping activity coming to the marine terminal has helped bolster the financial budgets that we currently have and enjoy. As we move forward in that, the question that I am asking once again is how can this benefit the overall community? We see a lot of this revenues and operations dollars simply being used here in the local Olympia area. How can we use that money throughout the whole county itself? So as I'm trying to figure out ways in which we can bring more money in, not just to the marine terminal, but to the port itself, what investments can we be making in the general community, in the south part of the county, in the eastern part of the county, to bring the return on the investment which you currently enjoy through the other divisions of the port?
Thank you. And Sue, you have 1 minute. Would you like the question again? What are your budget priorities for the port?
Well, as an outsider and a potential port commissioner, I think the first thing I need to do is get totally savvy about the port's budget once I get inside the doors. I would really like to evaluate what's going on at the marine terminal because I'm concerned that our taxpayers' subsidies are being used to support some rather large big businesses, and some modifications might be necessary in order to use the incredible taxing and borrowing power of the port to help the local county's economy. And like Jeff, I am extremely supportive of using the port's economic development mission to support the entire county as opposed to just one segment of the port's operations.
Thank you. Sue, you're going to get the next question for 2 minutes. What is your vision for the port's undeveloped land on the Port Peninsula and in Tumwater?
Well, in fact, I'm a bit concerned about any development on the Port Peninsula. The port has not developed a sea level rise plan or a climate change plan, and that really concerns me because the peninsula is vulnerable to sea level change. I don't think it's appropriate to stick the taxpayer with subsidizing, protecting any new development on that port property because we know climate change is real, and the IPCC just came out with a report really shouting that out. So I'm not one to promote that. But on the other hand, when it comes to Tumwater, we have a lot of agricultural land. You look at the Port of Skagit, and it leases 33 acres of ag land for incubators for organic farmers. So it's something like that that we could be doing in the south part of the county because around the airport, you've got incredibly good agricultural land.
Thank you. Jeff, you have 1 minute, and would you like me to repeat the question?
No,
or
it's
you're
fine. I have it. Thank
Okay.
you. So I'll start with Tumwater. Currently, the port has a little over 450 acres of industrial property out by the Tumwater Airport. We have been trying to develop that over quite some time, and in fact, the strategic session that we just got done doing for this 2013 year, item 6 is to develop 15 acres of industrial property out there and 30 acres of port property. Of course, in these times that we're in right now, it's very difficult to do that, but it's a goal that we've identified that is something that has to be done for the greater benefit of not just Tumwater, but for the Port of Olympia itself. As far as the peninsula property, there's been a vision there for some time to develop near the marina, to have a marina-type theme parked under the current Corps of Engineers designs to where we can have more businesses coming in, small mom and pop type businesses to support the marina activities that are currently down there. As far as the big question, it was a big issue a couple of years ago regarding North Point. There isn't currently a strong vision out there. There's been some ideas that have been floated, but I don't have a single vision for what we should be doing at North Point other than just to simply maintaining it for the community.
Okay, next question. Jeff, in conjunction with the Thurston Regional Planning Committee's recent draft plan, Creating Places, Preserving Spaces, what role in sustainable development should the port play? And you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I was a part of that program as we sat on the TRPC, an organization that we just joined again 3 years ago, and there was a lot of very good items that came as a result of the Sustainable Thurston study that will be presented to the TRPC this next week, if I recall. But as far as how the port can work its way into that, specifically in the industrial property out in Tumwater, I think that we can be sensitive to some of the issues regarding industrial lands and how that buttresses up to perhaps some residential areas itself. And we need to be cognizant of that as a port commission and make sure that we're not intruding upon some of those residential properties. But getting back to the vision that I had as far as developing industrial properties or light manufacturing properties, perhaps in the east side of the county or the south side of the county, this is where I think the Sustainable Thurston program really comes into play, in the sense that we can identify areas that mixed use can be used that doesn't have an impact on the local residents and also has a low carbon footprint pertaining to the type of businesses that we're going to be doing there, hopefully doing there, and making sure that the type of industry that's going to be coming to that area is conducive to what is going to be best for Thurston County. Again, we're talking about sustainability over the long term, and that's an ideology that is really apparent in this community. I think this commission, the other commissioners and myself included, are definitely keyed into that. And now we have a rule book by which we can play, or at least we can identify how we can bring the type of development in that is needed for Thurston County itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue, you have 1 minute. And do you want me to repeat the question? In conjunction with the Thurston Regional Planning Committee's recent draft plan, Creating Places, Preserving Spaces, what role in sustainable development should the port play? And you have 1 minute.
I think the port has an incredible opportunity to help preserve open spaces, to help sustainability in our county. Maybe one of the first places we have to look at the sustainability issue is just in terms of the port's operation and the cargo that it exports and imports. There are problems with exporting raw logs in terms of exporting jobs and importing fracking sand, so it'd be nice to start right at the port first and foremost. Also supporting people in the county in terms of what they want. A lot of people in South County don't want industrial development, and they would support softer development, agricultural development, the development of smaller local businesses. And I think that the port has an economic role to play in that fashion, and that it would be helpful to utilize it.
Thank you. Sue, you get the next question for 2 minutes. Do you think the port's strategic plan should have a financial target? If so, what should the target be?
I do, but I also think that there's a basic problem with the port's strategic plan. The recent plan that came out is just an extension of the old plan, and I would actually characterize it as a wish list of the staff. There was not a lot of public input in creating that strategic plan. They went out rapidly to the community over a period of a few days for feedback and moved it forward. That strategic plan leads to the capital improvements that are going to occur. If I were a port commissioner, I'd overhaul that strategic plan and do considerable outreach to the community to see what the community wants and redevelop that piece completely.
Thank you. Jeff, you have 1 minute. Do you need me to repeat the question?
No, thank you, Allyson. The strategic plan is constantly a work in motion, meaning it's not a hard document. It's an ideology that the commission, staff, and actually the public can collaborate with to figure out what it is, what direction the port should be going on in the future. So to say that it's a set-in-stone document is not necessarily a true statement. And I just want to get that out there. As far as to the question itself, The answer is no, and I'll tell you why. As we look and try to figure out what's going to be best for the county to bring jobs and economy in, to set a set benchmark on what that should be, it kind of hinders us to allow, or at least be maneuverable to bringing businesses in. For example, if we had a set amount of, we have to make 3% on our return, certainly the farmers market contract that we just got done signing wouldn't fall underneath that guideline. But it's because we have the brevity to work with individual groups, work with individual manufacturers out at the industrial property, we can adjust rates accordingly to the benefit that they're going to be bringing into the community. I think it's a short-sighted concept to just simply look at the return on the investment of which the port should be held to.
Thank you. Jeff, 2 minutes. Should the port support the use of renewable energy, and if so, how?
Absolutely. Some of you may know that the marine terminal itself was bringing in wind towers through the area. Unfortunately, a lot of those projects are done, and the Obama administration didn't extend that subsidy to make that happen anymore. So we're not seeing that type of cargo come in. But I've been a strong advocate for some time, actually, to bring solar panels out to the industrial property that we have near the airport. Specifically for 2 reasons. One, as some of you may know, the Mazama-Paca gopher is somewhat of an issue regarding us being able to develop properties out there. And I'm anxiously awaiting to see what the DFW ruling is going to be on that. But let's just assume for a second that we can't develop on that property. Then the question I think that we're forward thinking on is what's going to be the best use for that? Solar panels, in my mind, would be a fantastic vision for not just diversifying what the port can be doing, but bringing new energies, exciting energies into Thurston County itself, and the port would be primed for something like that. There's been a couple programs that have been out there that are still can be utilized to where private funds can be brought in to create development like this as long as it's being used on public land. And as one of the largest owners of public land in the Tumwater area, I think that we would be a fantastic opportunity for us to move on that. The other issue that we have out there on some of that property is high groundwater. And high groundwater poses a problem that you can't really build buildings on that. So as we try to identify what it is that we can be doing to benefit the local economy and bring the type of ideology that the citizens of this county would like to have the port do, I think a solar park fits very nicely into that sort of concept, specifically out at the some of the property we have at the Tumwater.
Thank you. Sue, you have 1 minute. Do you want me to reread the question?
Sure.
Should the port support the use of renewable energy, and if so, how?
The port should support the use of renewable energy, and first and foremost, I just have to criticize the import of fracking sands one more time, because that does not support renewable energy. That supports the petroleum industry, fouls groundwater, and destroys people's health in the community. And although it's happening in North Dakota and not Olympia, I don't think that we should be culpable of doing something like that when we have a large climate problem. I also agree with Jeff that solar energy is a great idea. The Tumwater area is a great idea. If the Port Peninsula gets inundated with water, maybe we can put solar panels right out on the peninsula, because we could float them above the peninsula.
Thank you. Sue, you have 2 minutes. What would you say to county property owners who wonder why the port has raised its property tax levy if it made a profit last year, or that think the port should be self-sustaining?
Well, I would agree with those people, and you know, my take on why property taxes were raised last year was in anticipation of a bond for $18 million that was passed this year. And I just do not think well, one of the interesting things is the port can borrow up to $60 million without going out for a public vote. But the school district and fire districts all have to go out for a vote on bond issues. And so I would like to see the public more involved with the port's decision-making process, and also an opportunity to weigh in on these bond issues at an earlier stage in order to control the increase in taxes, because it seems to be inevitable that it increases every year, and if elected, it will not happen under my watch.
Thank you. Jeff, do you need me to read the question again?
No, I have it. I just wish I had more time.
Okay, well, you have 1 minute.
All right, thank you. The 18 cents per thousand, so an average home in this county is $262,000, excuse me, which means the port receives just about $48 of that. Just to give you a concept, we are the second lowest port in the state, marine terminal port in the state, that receives money from marine terminals as far as the bonding. The way the bond has to be looked at is simply this: we are borrowing money so that we can do capital projects. We are borrowing money so we can do capital projects. And it just so happens the capital projects that we're hoping to do over this next couple of years with this bonding money, 57% of that is going towards environmental cleanup. Specifically, stormwater mitigation we have to be doing at the marine terminal by the laws of this state. And secondly, to clean up Mud Bay. So much of this money is going towards environmental cleanup that we have to do what we can to make that happen. And we're kind of in a nice situation that the ports have got the ability to clean up the environment. There's not too many entities that have that ability. So if you look at that, the amount that the port receives from that, a lot of that's going, 57% of that's going towards environmental cleanup.
Okay. Thank you. Jeff, you get the next question for 2 minutes. Are there any types of legal cargo you think the port should refuse?
Yes. I've been asked specifically on some of the products that we're currently handling. I came to the conclusion a long time ago that no matter what the marine terminal does, somebody's not going to like it. And I tell this story about my second meeting that I had as a port commissioner. Some individuals pulled me aside and asked me how I can bring these giant tools of mass destruction in through the Port of Olympia, and how can I live with myself? And I thought, boy, we haven't had military cargo come through in quite some time, but what they were referring to actually was the wind towers that we're bringing through and how devastating they are on the Audubon, birds and bats specifically. And I have people that tell me all the time, they look down at the marine terminal and all they see is a bunch of dead trees, the forest that they grew up in. So when I look at the decisions as far as what type of material or cargo we should be handling in the port, the very first question I have is, what is the immediate impact on the citizens of this county? What is the immediate impact of the people that are going to be associated with this? So if somebody came to the Port of Olympia and said, we would like to bring radioactive material in here, or a caustic material that has a potential of explode if it gets wet, I would take pause and say, I'm not so sure that that's the right thing for us. So is some of this cargo legal? Yeah, I think you can classify it that way. But would it have an immediate impact on the citizens of Thurston County? I'm here to tell you that I wouldn't allow that to happen.
Okay, thank you. Sue, are there any types of legal cargo you think the port should refuse?
Yeah, I think there are a whole bunch. I think maybe it's my scientific background, or maybe it's 20 years of environmental work, but I see things holistically, and I don't think about just specifically the people of Olympia. And so I think it's important that we not facilitate actions that destroy our environment or undermine our local economy. And the example, of course, is of fracking sands, bringing those in. I think it's inappropriate for us to be doing that. I would look to develop a resolution that requires cargo coming in and out of the port is environmentally friendly and sustainable.
Okay, thank you. Sue, you get the next question for 2 minutes. What 3 major challenges do you think you would face as port commissioner in the next 4 years?
I think almost every activity related to the port that would be challenging in the next 4 years. The goals that I have described is really turning the port around into a different direction. And so it's one person making an attempt to make the port operate in the black, making it environmentally responsible, and to enhance its relation with the public and use its economic mission to support the entire county's economy and not just big businesses. That's a huge challenge, just to change the direction and the method of operation of the port. I think it's going to be challenging to get up to speed on all the port's operation, but I'm an incredibly good student and rather smart, and I don't think that it'll take too long to do that. And we're looking for a third challenge. I think the third challenge is going to be to develop a process of outreach across this county to people in other areas than Olympia so that they can provide input. And that's going to take time. You're going to have to sit with people. You're going to have to develop relationships. And it's not something the port has done heretofore, and I think it's going to take a bit to develop that process.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, what are
you.
your three major challenges?
Thank you, Allyson. Profitability and making sure the port is sustainable is always a challenge for any port in the state. And so I would have to put that at the top of the list, is make sure that we maintain the status that we're doing to be profitable, not just to the port, but to the citizens of Thurston County. On top of that, I'm constantly asking, and what I really am hoping to do over the next 4 years is to do what we can to develop that fifth tenet of the port. As I'd indicated, we have the airport, we have the marina, we have the marine terminal, and we have the industrial property out by the airport. Well, what's the fifth thing that the port is doing for the citizens of Thurston County? And that's what I'm really excited to take on as a challenge, to do what we can for economic development and job creation. And that kind of leads into the last thing, if we're successful in doing that, is redefining what ports do. Most people, when they think of a port, they think of a ship and a dock and movement of cargo, but we're so much more than that. We have the ability to create economy, create jobs in the local community, and of course that translates into a better tax base, and a better tax base translates to better roads and schools, of which we all should generally benefit from. So keeping those challenges on the forefront, I think, is something that we all try to accomplish.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move to some questions from our audience, and you will each get 1 minute. The first question, I'll start with Sue. So you get the first question. What is your take on Capitol Lake, lake or estuary, and why? This is a hot one.
Yeah, I love this question.
I know.
I love this
Okay,
question.
1 minute.
I really haven't made a decision on the lake or estuary, but I have two values that are very important. One is that I value a healthy environment and a vibrant ecosystem. So that comports really well with an estuary. But I also value the tradition that we have in this community of enjoying and recreating at the lake. So I look forward to being more informed on actual proposals that are moving forward in order to determine what my position is. And as Port Commissioner, whatever is being offered has to work for the port too, and I will do that. So that's my response.
Okay, Jeff.
Yes.
1 minute.
Thank you. I think as a port commissioner, you have to take on the role of making sure that the lake maintains a lake, simply because of all the sediment and debris that dam or weir is currently holding back. It would be a tremendous impediment for the marine terminal to do business if that lake were to be removed and debris were to be allowed to just simply flow down into the bay itself. But on top of that, I think that from a personal standpoint, everybody's anxious to do something with that area. And I think the best thing that we need to do for this community is move forward with the clamp plan, which simply stated that the first step in this process, whether there's going to be an estuary or a lake, is you have to dredge that lake. That's the thing that needs to happen. I think this community really needs to start getting behind that notion of what the clamp proposal brought forward, because whether or not you're for a lake or an estuary, the first thing that needs to happen is there has to be removal of sediment from that lake. So from a personal standpoint, recreation standpoint, I think a lake would benefit everybody in the general community. I'd like to see us go back to a time where we can enjoy that.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, I'll start with you for the next question. What role could the port play in helping to redevelop the former Tumwater Brewery property?
Thanks, Tom. I think that, I'm sorry, I think we have...
Tom's a good advocate.
There is, yes, he's a big advocate. I think that the port can take a role in that. And I've had this conversation with several members of the Tumwater Council in the sense of, this is a Tumwater project. And when the time comes where they need our assistance on this, I'd be more than happy to do that, but I do not want to have this port, this commission, this staff to come in with a cavalier idea to say that this is ours and we're going to take ownership of it. So I and the other commissioners are waiting in the wings to find out what the vision is for that, how we can help out on that to bring economic development forward. I think it falls right in line with what ports should be doing. But for us to come in and take charge in the meeting and say this is what has to be done, that's not the intention of this commission right now, nor myself.
Sue, do you want to talk about the Tumwater Brewery?
Sure, I'd love to talk about the Tumwater Brewery. I would like to see the port involved in the Tumwater Brewery. I mean, I guess I have to step back and say I'd like to go through a public process to see what the public thinks the port should be doing. But I think the brewery should clearly be on the table. I mean, the brewery should be an incredible asset for the community. And although it's in Tumwater, it could become a destination point where people are coming here from Seattle and Portland to view and participate what's potentially going on in the brewery. And one example is in Los Angeles. There's a brewery that's an art colony with artists and restaurants, and also in Annapolis, Maryland, there's a place called the Torpedo Factory, jewelry stores, you know, beautiful things like that. There's a series of warehouses there that could house small entrepreneurs. And so the port, I think, you should be able to take a viable bite about that and be a partner with the county and Tumwater making something happen there.
Thank you. Thank you both. And thank you, Tom, for that question. Okay, and next question. I'll start with Sue. What is your stance on the farmers market?
Oh, interesting. I'm a supporter of the farmers market, and I believe that the port has not really supported sufficiently. I am working with the vendors of the market, and right now there's a petition with 64 vendors that are supporting me because they are concerned that my opponent has, in a port commission meeting, discussed taking the parking lot back. But even if you don't talk about my opponent and you talk about the history of its relationship with the port, there has been discussions about building a pay-for parking lot there. And basically, the vendors of the parking lot do not feel like they have a positive relationship with the port. So I would look towards improving that, and part of that is their lease. The lease has been improved. It is now at a fixed percentage rate of its profits, about $75,000 a year, but I think a fixed lease would be more appropriate.
Jeff, your stance on the farmers market?
Well, I too am in favor of the farmers market. So just to clear the air on a couple of things, there's never been a time where I've stated that I was against the farmers market. There's never been a time where I said I want the farmers market to go away. Having said that, this commission just a couple months ago signed a long-term lease with the farmers market, reducing the rate by which they would pay ultimately the Port of Olympia. And to be clear on this, we acquiesced to every demand that they had coming to the table on this. So there was never pushback given from the Port of Olympia, and I guess I kind of credit my opponent here a little bit of making an issue out of something that really isn't an issue. But if you want to look in the direction of where there should be fault that's blamed in my mind, I think we need to look at the city's responsibility in giving the farmers market what they asked for as well. I mean, that's, in many ways, the mayor who sat in on negotiations with this didn't give the farmers market exactly what they had asked for as well. So we acquiesced on everything that they demanded, and I'm quite proud to say that we have a long-term contract with the farmers market, and hopefully it can be viable over the long term. One last thing, we are adding new parking to the farmers market just south of there on the DFW building property that we purchased, so looking forward to opening that.
Okay, thank you. So here is sort of an overarching question for you both. Jeff, I'll let you start with this one. What benefit does the port provide the Thurston County community?
If you go to the 2009 economic impact study, it shows all sorts of benefits that they do. And I wanted to get a chance to talk about the taxes out there. For every dollar of tax money that the port receives, the return on the investment for the general community is $6.93. And that's really, really good. The amount of jobs that we currently employ, going back to the economic impact study, we have an influence of just about 7,200 jobs in the local community. Now, does that mean if the port goes away, that those jobs are going to go away? Perhaps not, but I think it also shows that we're doing a good job in our role in creating economic development, creating jobs from which everybody can benefit, and again, it gets back to the tax base. $93 million goes to the federal taxes. Again, I'm quoting the 2009 Economic Impact Study, and $32 million is generated in taxes in the local community. So for the port to arbitrarily go away, be it the airport or the industrial property out there, I think it would be a tremendous loss for this community. So we keep trying to bring more things in. We keep trying to advance that economic development role, and I think we're doing a really good job.
Okay, Sue, what benefit does the port provide the Thurston County community?
Well, the port has traditionally provided some economic benefits. I do believe the economic study has been inflated, and typically those kind of studies tend to be inflated because they're used as basically a public relations tool. So I do think that if the port went away, most of those jobs wouldn't disappear and would move forward. The thing that I think is exciting about the port is what it can do in terms of an economic development, and I think it should be more broadly across the county as opposed to concentrated on a few large businesses that operate out of the marine terminal. And so that's what I would look to expand and promote as opposed to business as usual.
Thank you. Sue, this question is for you, but you'll both get a chance to answer it, so I'll ask you first. What is your plan for changing Bud Bay from toxic to live?
I don't recall having a plan to change Bud Bay from toxic to live, but as I think I said in a previous answer, is that I support a healthy environment and a robust ecosystem. And so whatever that takes in terms of a process that is developed here to address the Capitol Lake and Bud Bay Inlet, I'll be totally supportive of the environmental benefits of such a plan.
Jeff?
Yeah, actually, we do have a plan in place at the Port of Olympia, and that is simply to remove a lot of the dredge spoils, or the spoils that are down there in Bud Bay itself. As all of you may know, there are some dioxins that are currently in Bud Bay, even now. This is nothing that the port has done. This is all legacy contaminants that the port will be removing over the long term. And hopefully that's going to be a benefit for Bud Bay. You know, I hear a lot of criticisms about the dredging project or the cleanup project, but at the same time, you can't deny that removing a toxic material from an area is much more beneficial than just simply leaving it there. So we have a plan in place. I'm looking forward to moving forward with it here in the next couple of months, and hopefully over the next couple of years we can bring some more activity in that area to where we can actually clean the area up and turn it back into a live and working, hopefully sustainable area over the long term.
Thank you. So I do have a couple of questions here that I am trying to summarize. So you're going to have to bear with me. They're kind of long. So let's try this. Jeff, let me see if I can get this question sort of summarized. There seems to be a concern with the port subsidizing private businesses like Weyerhaeuser, but yet you also have the Hands-on Children Museum and the Olympia's Farmers Market. Are there some enterprises that are subsidized and not others? And is this okay? Should they all pay their same fair share?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually, and it kind of goes back to the question that was asked, should we have a marker or a return on the investment identified in our strategic plan? So the answer is, I believe, yes. Some businesses do have a higher subsidy than other businesses, and that was done from past commissions or current commission to identify what is it that is the best benefit for the local community. I'll go to the farmers market. Nobody can deny that the farmers market brings a tremendous amount of industry into the local community. On top of that, it helps the local farmers have a place and artisans to have a place by which that they can sell their wares. We don't charge them parking for that area, and the reason why I say that is because there's no other lot lease that we have at the Port of Olympia that doesn't charge parking. So we're allowed to be flexible in the type of mortgage or leases that we give to different groups, hoping that they can bring the economic development and bring jobs in the local community, which is what we're charged to do in the first place.
Sue?
You think you can do it again?
Probably not, but let's try. This question has to do with the subsidizing of private businesses such as Weyerhaeuser, but there are other resources out there such as the Hands-on Children Museum and the Olympia Farmers Market. Is it okay for some enterprises to be subsidized but not others, and why don't they all pay their fair share?
Okay, well, I guess I would agree that some enterprises probably should be subsidized, and the farmers market is a very good example. I mean, the farmers market is almost the epitome of high-quality economic development. It's created hundreds of jobs and millions of dollars of revenue, and it brings our community together. It's a place of joy, and I think we should be supporting it. The question maybe is more about whether Weyerhaeuser should be subsidized, and if you look at the port's operations and the fact that it's losing money. It lost $1.4 million last year, and the marine terminal is its biggest operation and therefore the biggest money loser. I think that then you've got to start looking at these contracts with Weyerhaeuser and decide whether that's where you want your taxpayer subsidies to go, and I would suggest probably not, and there may be better opportunities.
Okay, thank you. So this is another question that I'm going to try to summarize. So Sue, I'll let you go first. This individual is concerned with logging trucks, particularly logging trucks going through our community, the diesel fumes, and particularly the danger of losing a load, and these trucks not being able to stop before collision. I assume they're all going to the port. So if you could just discuss sort of the increase in logging trucks through town and answer this person's question. So I'll let you go first for 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's a real problem. I feel threatened every time I go around a roundabout with logging trucks bearing down on me. There's a concern about how old they are, their brakes, operational capability, the fact that when they idle, they emit ozone. There's a recent federal study out of NIH that has correlated autism with diesel emissions. We're authorized up to, I think it's 250 or 300 logging trucks to move through town daily. I don't think it's really a benefit for people living in that path. And also, it creates a flavor and tone to this community that is highly industrial, and I think it actually impedes a community's, capability for economic development, because it keeps us kind of back in the 19th century with this kind of industrial motif.
Okay, thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, I too am concerned, but I am happy to say that there hasn't been an incident on Plum Street down to the marine terminal since I can recall. And I think that that's testament to the guys that are driving. I think it's testament to the traffic actions that the city took to make sure that they can accommodate those trucks coming through there, and the investment that the port actually did in that corridor to make sure that it doesn't degrade over time. I tell a story about one time there was a driver that was driving a little bit too fast along the marine terminal property, and I got ahead of him and pulled him over and said, "You need to slow the heck down." But that's the type of actions that need to be done. We all are a community here, and if we see indiscretions like that, we need to take action about it. So fortunately, there hasn't been an accident, and I don't anticipate seeing one over the long term. We've worked symbiotically with the marine terminal and the community on this, and I think that we'll be doing it for quite some time.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask you one more question before we go to closing comments. And again, I'm going to summarize. So I'm not quite sure how to put this one together. There seems to be a comment that was made during this campaign that gives the impression that you might be cynical about government. So let me ask both of you. Sue, are you cynical about government? You have 1 minute to tell us whether you're cynical about government.
Actually, no, I'm not cynical about government, and I got to admit, when I was a kid, I was not particularly fond of government, but as I've matured, I realize government are us. And so I think it's really important that we are involved with the public process, that we take the opportunity to run for elective positions, and that we are the solution to our problems, and we are government.
Jeff, are you cynical about government?
No, not at all. I think one of the exciting things about being a port commissioner is we don't really operate like a city, in the sense of a city is in charge of managing and making sure that the street lights are running and the roads are fine and the police force is intact. But we have the ability here to create investment in the local communities, which hopefully translates into jobs. And you can't take on this position and be cynical about it. It's a charge that the RCW, Section 53, the laws of this state have given ports to say you're designed to create economic development in your jurisdiction. And then, like I said, you can't take on this role and be cynical about it. And I take it on very seriously. So ports have an incredibly unique opportunity to bring jobs to the local area of all different sizes and flavors, and hopefully we can continue to do that over the future.
Okay, thank you both. So now I will give you each 1 minute for a closing statement. Sue, you get to go first.
Okay, well, on November the 5th, you have the opportunity to use your vote to change what happens at the port as opposed to supporting the status quo. And together, we can work to make the port financially solvent, wean it off of taxpayers' subsidies, and get it so that it supports our local businesses. The port should no longer operate as a separate entity that works behind the fence to improve its own bottom line. We need to involve the public in the port's decision-making, particularly strategic planning, so that we can use its remarkable taxing and borrowing powers to develop our county's economy. So I believe it's time to turn the ship around, but I need your help to make it happen. Please vote for empowering our community's relationship with the port, enhancing our county's economy, and creating new local businesses by voting for me on November the 5th.
Thank you. Jeff, you have a 1 minute for closing statement.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, everybody, for coming this late on a Saturday night. I'm just going to respond a little bit to some of the comments that my opponent has made here. You're right, you do have a choice this next election, and some of the comments I think have been made here are fairly obvious that it's going to be directed specifically towards a marine terminal. The fact is if it wasn't for the success of the marine terminal being successful over the last couple of years, we wouldn't have the type of profits which we can turn around and generate back to the local community. If you look at the port in four different tenants, which I've stated before, as far as the airport, the marina, and the industrial property, and the marine terminal, the success of the port has been derived on the marine terminal having activity at that area itself. So if we lose that, if we start to take away or diminish the ability of the marine terminal to operate efficiently and bring goods and services out in and out of this state, I think that that's going to be not just a detriment to this local community, but moreover a detriment to the state. And that's something I'm going to continue to fight for. So I'm Jeff Davis, and I hope to have your vote in the future.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Thurston County, I would like to thank both of you for joining us tonight. It was great. And thank you, TCTV, for joining us and filming. And thank all of you for joining us tonight. And please remember to vote in the November 5th general election. It's important. And don't forget to join the League of Women Voters of Thurston County if you haven't joined us. We'd love to have you. And with that, thank you all for coming, and good night.
Nice job, Sue.
Nice job, Jeff. We were so civil.
You guys were very civil. Thank you.
Don't have it either way.